Hi, my dear friend. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you? It's good to see you.
Good to see you. How's my sister?
She's wonderful. Still putting up with me.
Uh,
Thank God.
thank God. Thank God. Yeah. I
That's
can't,
right. That's right.
I can't wait till we can travel again, so we can either come there, or you guys can come here.
I would absolutely love that. I can't wait.
Yeah, me too.
I cannot wait. How is Elston doing?
Um, I think he's missing his mother, of course.
Hmm,
I mean, he's struggling with teaching remotely because they have something new every single day, so it's kind of like waffling. So I think he's
right.
struggling a bit with that, but for the most part, he's doing well. Michelle and Everett are doing well. Both of them are here. So it's the four of us
Hmm.
in the house. And so each one of us has claimed our own room, so we won't be near each other, getting on each other's nerves. So um,
Social distancing, even in the house.
even in the house, absolutely. So Michael, the way we start this, I ask you by asking you to tell us your name and anything you want to share about you with us.
You were frozen. I missed all of that.
Sorry about that. Let's try it one more
No
time.
problem.
We start by asking you to tell us your name and anything you want to share that helps us get to know you a little bit better. Now you're frozen.
Okay.
So
Okay. What about now?
everything's good now.
Okay, great. So my name is Michael Saunders. I'm the vice president of hip hop and R&B programming for iHeartMedia in Houston, and I specifically program KQBT FM in Houston, which is a hip hop and R&B station.
Mhm.
But I'm also responsible for radio stations across the country, like Memphis, Jacksonville, Florida, and several of the other stations, wherever they feel there's a need to fix a radio station that's
Mhm.
been problematic. They typically call or email me, and we'll start to go through the process of listening and monitoring those stations and give them some feedback so we can correct those stations where we see that there are some small problems or sometimes major problems. I've been in radio for about 40 years, started when I was 16,
Wow.
and going from high school to the pros, as a lot of my friends said, I didn't get a chance to go through the natural order like my friends did, whether it was college or the military. I went to college for maybe a semester or half a semester at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and realized for me, it wasn't a calling for me because I'd already had 2, 3 years in radio experience, and the people I was working with were much older than I was, and the maturity level at a job like that was so great and so high that by the time I tried to go to class, my classmates were so silly in college that I was like, what am I doing here? I'm learning more on the job, so I just stuck with radio and got that fabulous on-the-job training.
Yeah.
And 25, 26 years old, you find yourself with 10 years of experience, and we just kind of moved on. But worked in radio everywhere from Charlotte, North Carolina, to Los Angeles, Detroit, New York, Washington D.C., and now in Orlando, Florida, and now Houston, Texas. So been around the country and met some fabulous people, and a lot of some people have influenced my life greatly
Mhm.
through radio. A lot of interviews on the radio. I used to be on the radio. That's how I started, but I was doing afternoon drive and got fascinated with being behind the scenes and programming. So
Mhm.
I decided that I'd want to focus on that because that's where the science was for the art, and love the scientific approach to programming because that's where the research was, that's where the math was, and again the science. So I fell in love with that and begged them to take me off the air, and I'm glad I did because now I enjoy being on the back end, behind the scenes.
Mhm.
That's where, to me, all the action is.
Absolutely. Um, so let me ask you a question about radio and the death of Mr. Floyd. I
Hmm.
can see most of what happens on TV, but how does radio recognize what's happening, the continuing killings of Black and brown people by law enforcement or other groups who think it's their duty to mete out justice? How does
Hmm.
radio address that?
That's a wonderful question. The thing about radio is that we have the power of the microphone, and we, like our radio station, we tracked about probably like 700,000 people every 15 minutes. So we know this amplified voice we have is crucial to getting the word out. So what we do is we go with the people. What cry the people have, that's the cry that we have, since those are the people we're serving. So for Houston, you know, Houston is basically about 40%, if not more, of Latinos or Hispanics. And we're also about 20% Black. So
Mhm.
you talk about Black and brown people, that's who we are. We represent more than 50% of the population here in Houston. So we get on the air and the jocks talk about what they've seen as far as people being out marching. We try to tell them, you know, continue to uh, practice safety by wearing a mask when you go out, protest peacefully. We're not interested in trying to get people to be galvanized for destruction. We want them to be peaceful. We want their voice to be heard. We support them. We back them. Whenever there is a march, like we had a march here at City Hall, we made sure we promoted that. One of the local artists here, two of the local artists put that together, and we got on the air and promoted that, did a commercial for them at no charge. During the funeral and memorial of Mr. Floyd, we got on the air and gave updates of what was going on and what was happening at the memorial. I created a commercial that was 60 seconds. And within that, I put a moment of silence. And we ran that commercial for each hour for 8 hours to represent the 8 minutes, 46 seconds that he was killed, murdered. And that was our way of supporting. Instead of running 8 minutes straight, we wanted to, you know, do that every hour for 8 hours. And obviously all the updates, everything that was going on, talked about. We kept the listeners abreast of what was going on with the police officers, the investigation on our morning show. Ben Crump was on with the Breakfast Club. They talked to him. Any piece that we could find that we knew would be compelling for our audience to hear, we'd run that. And even in our morning show promos that ran after the morning show was over, we made sure we had items in there talking about the George Floyd situation, as well as the Ahmaud Arbery. So we had obviously a lot of things, and unfortunately going on, but it's our job as radio to cover that. And as you know, Black radio news is pretty much non-existent. So we have to be that voice as well.
Yeah, I think I agree with you completely. One of the things that I wanted to ask you specifically about radio, though. So as you said, you know, you have a medium, but did you see the CNN day that the Black reporter was arrested for who knows what? I think his name is Jimenez. He was on CNN reporting in Minneapolis 2 or 3 days after Mr. Floyd had died, and he was arrested. He was a reporter, a CNN reporter with his tag, his name, everything CNN, and they arrested him. And they wouldn't tell him why they arrested him.
Yeah.
So my question about that is where does the First Amendment or, you know, public information fall in radio? Is it fall exactly the same way it does in television? I mean, so are you bound by any guidelines or something about what you can and can't say, what you can and can't do, and what is free speech and what is not free speech?
Yeah, you know, I think for radio, it's pretty much the same. I mean, we follow the guidelines of the FCC laws, rules and regulations and policies. But we are supposed to live in a country where there is what we call free speech. That's what is written, but there's another hidden agenda that there are certain people who don't like free speech. They like free speech as long as it goes along with what they believe. But when it's against what you believe, people are not too inclined to like to hear free speech, because that is not something that is agreeable to them. But in that case, you know, I looked at that and said, man, here's a Black man who's out here doing his job. He's a part of the media, and you're arresting him. And then I saw something similar where some officers arrested another Black man only to find out that he was an FBI agent. Yeah. And it just reminded me that it doesn't matter the color of your skin. If you're Black, they look at us all the same. And being that this is the 11th anniversary of the death of Michael Jackson, Muhammad Ali, they were also people that it shows no matter how high you get life and entertainment at your skill, your craft, you're still viewed as just another black person or black man, Negro, and they don't really respect us for that. That's what has been my experience living here in America for 56 years.
You're absolutely right, Michael. Mine too. You know, and I have two children. I have a 21-year-old son and a 41-year-old daughter. And my son has been pretty ill for quite a while, but he's doing much better now, thankfully. But when he was going to school, he would
Thankfully.
drive from the front door of our house to the front door of his university, 48 miles. And the minute he sat in that car seat and pulled out the driveway from either going or coming, I started praying until he arrived at school or until he arrived home. You know, and
That's right.
Skip and I have had to talk with him so much. And I think young people are a little bit blasé about it, right? They don't think
Hmm.
that this could happen to them. You know, they don't think, you know, that's not going to happen to me. And I mean, in
Right.
this case, I really do think it's a true statement because he's such an affable, warm, and kind guy that almost everybody meets him, loves him. And I mean, I don't care what color they are
Absolutely.
and gender, they just love him.
That's right.
I think there's something about him that's good, but I also try to remind him there are lots of people who have died who have been the same way, been just wonderful, kind, beautiful people have just died just because they were black or brown or something like that, you know.
That's right. That's right.
So having children is frightening to have children in these days and times. You know, you saw the two students in Atlanta get tased on their way from getting food.
Hmm.
It's just a thing where you just shake your head and say, God, how much more? You know, what does it
Right.
happen before we actually stop doing this to people of color?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, Everett is a beautiful little soul, beautiful spirit. And, you know, for us, we see that and it makes us so proud to see someone like Everett coming up. I see the way he is around you, how he loves and admires you, um, and you know how he's attentive to you.
Mhm.
But just as we look at that, and it's beautiful to us, in some other people's eyes, that is a threat to them
Yeah,
because they know that Everett, when he finds a wife, he and his wife get together, they are going to become giants, and they'll have babies, and he'll teach that baby or their babies whatever he has in him, and now you got a future generation of beautiful spirited, attentive people to their parents. And a lot of people don't care to see that and don't want that kind of generation going on. So I totally understand what you're saying, because just as beautiful he is to us, he's a threat to another race of people,
absolutely.
and it's unfortunate. But I'll say this: everything in nature has a natural enemy.
Right.
Everything. I mean,
Yep.
the bird or the
Yep.
worm has the bird, the
Yep.
fox has the chicken has the fox,
Yep.
God has Satan.
Right.
And we as black people are no different. We have a natural enemy. We've just not believed that we have one, but we really do. I used to watch, geographic shows, and say, man, I'm glad I'm not like a fish and there's a bear trying to get me. There's another fish trying to eat me. I'm glad I don't have an enemy like that. Only to realize that being in America for 465 years, I really do have a natural enemy.
Yes,
And
you.
I just didn't know it. But as you see cats and dogs grow up together, they can be cordial to one another if they've grown up with each other. But at a certain point, if something happens, that natural enemy would come out of both of them. And I think that's what's going on now. And we're looking at, that's why it's causing us such disbelief that why do y'all hate us so much? Why do you kill us unjustifiably?
Right.
Why do you do that? But that's what a natural enemy does.
Exactly. That is.
And it's not reverse racism. It's not that. It's just an actual fact, because we don't have to prejudge anybody because we've seen exactly what is being done to us. And we don't have a history of killing anybody.
Right.
We sit in the church and pray and ask for forgiveness and mercy.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I
yeah,
heard
so, but I'm just looking at it.
I heard on a talk show yesterday. Skip was driving somewhere, and I heard on a talk show where a white man said that there are racists all over the world, including their black racists, their brown racists, their Asian racists. And I took exception with that. I almost broke the radio trying to turn it off because, you know, um, racist, right? So
Right.
if I understand what racist means, and I mean in not in colloquially or through whatever the modern dictionary says, but I mean really what racist is to hate someone for the color or some characteristic of their
Right.
person. And I honestly believe, and I could be wrong, Black people cannot be racist because
No.
we are loving people. We might not like the Klan, we might not like white supremacists, but if we encountered a white supremacist or a Klan member and they were in a desperate situation, we would help. Where the other way
Right.
around, they would kill us. And I take you
Absolutely.
back to Rodney King's beating in 1992. So Reginald Denny was a truck driver, and he was driving through the town or whatever it is, I can't remember. He was driving through, and people started throwing rocks and trying to hurt him. And it was a Black man who saved
Right.
his life.
That's right.
And so when people make that proclamation that Black people are racist, I think Black people are hurt. I think Black people are tired. I think Black people are frustrated. We're tired of any injustice and inequality. But I do not believe Black, brown, or any other kind of person other than a white person is racist, because there's no benefit for me to try to hold down a white person or hold down a brown person. It does me no good. And I tell people this all the time. Whenever something good happens for Black people, it happens good for every single race. It doesn't make any difference.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I mean, the Jesus that I grew up, or the so-called Jesus that they used to put on my grandmother and my mother's wall back in the 60s, and probably some still do today, he had blonde hair, blue eyes.
Yeah.
Sometimes he was a brunette.
Yeah.
But they put him in the form of white.
Right.
And so to this day, there are Black people who believe that Jesus is white. So if Jesus is white and his father is God, that means God must be white.
Right.
But in the Bible, it does not describe him as blonde hair, blue eyed. It said he had hair like lamb's wool, feet burnished brass. He sounded like me and you. He sounded like a Black person.
Right.
But they put, that was the beginning of white supremacy in the form of divinity. So if we can accept, and we have accepted, a white Jesus, my question is, could you accept a Black Jesus? If he came knocking on your door and said, Mr. Trump, I am Jesus, and I'm here to help America get out of the trouble that they're in. I don't know what Trump and his security would do with a Black man like that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I don't think we are not even in a position to be racist because, like you said, there's no benefit. And financial situation or system here. We don't control the educational system here. So we can't be racist. That's where the power really is. And that's why they're able to accuse us and say, you're not qualified for this. You can't do this. I had a real quick, Rochelle, I had a situation in Florida where on the telephone, we were having a conversation with a bank to lend us money to buy a home. And over the lady said, you don't have to come in. We can do this on the phone. So I went through the whole process over the phone, gave her all my information. And in a few days, she called me back and said, you're approved. And she sent me my application back and, the mortgage details. And on that piece of paper, she had checked that I was a white male. And I think it's because of being in radio, my background, I don't sound like a Black person. I just have this general market sound. That's what I've been told. But, in Florida, they have a certain dialect where you can tell whether they're Black or white. But I guess she couldn't tell them, but she checked off that I was white. So I told her, I said, there's another company. And again, this is a phone conversation. I said, there's another company, another bank that's coming after us and said they can do better than what you have offered. She said, I don't care what it is. We will get your business. They will not be able to outbid us for this. So whatever. So she finally said, before you close, we got one piece of paper where you do have to come in and sign. So I went in, my wife and I, and she looked surprised when she saw us. Went in the conference room, signed off on the paper, left. Next day she called, she said, I'm so sorry, we're not going to be able to approve your loan. I said, you've already approved the loan. I said, what are you talking about? And she said, yeah, something's come up where we're not going to be able to afford to give you this loan. And I said, well, why not? And she could never tell me. I said, well, put yourself in my position. And I said, by the way, I was always instructed never to give my money to someone who doesn't want it. I said, I'm not a fool like that. If you don't want me to eat in your restaurant, I'm not going to protest eating there. I'm not going to do it. If you don't want me around, fine, you don't get my business.
Right.
I said, but I find it very strange that before you met me, you're willing to give me this loan. But as soon as you saw my black face, you rejected me with that loan. And I said, I'm perfectly fine with that. So, and look, this was in 2008. So, but I've dealt with things like that growing up in Chester, South Carolina, all of my life. So it's nothing new. I'm just so appreciative of those who are racist and don't care for Black people, that they have the courage to stand up and put it in our face, so I don't have to guess who you are.
Yeah.
I really appreciate them being honest about their open hatred of us.
Yeah. So you can be careful and stay safe.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm like, listen, this is your loss.
Yeah.
You're missing a tremendous blessing.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Fine, it's all right with me. But
amen.
It's like, man.
I believe whatever God's got for you, you're gonna get it, and ain't a thing in the world gonna stop.
Absolutely. And we got a loan, and it was the best situation, no problems, none whatsoever. And there were many companies coming after us, thank God. And we were able to purchase the home, and then later on, after 8 beautiful years in that home, sell it and move on. So we're very thankful.
That's not unusual, right? That's not
No, not at all.
Right? We had redlining for how long? If only one Black person, or if a Black person moved in a certain community, it was forbidden, by law, not by people just generally not wanting them, but they have laws on the books that said Black people could not do this, Black and white people could not marry, all of these things that kind of ensured that we were separated. And even when you think about the education system, and you were talking about when you started school, I mean, even today in 2020, Black and brown children struggle in school. They struggle in elementary school, and they struggle in post-secondary school. And there's very little help for them, because they figure the white people that are there are saying, well, hell, they must have got here because of affirmative action, or somebody must have called somebody or something. But you didn't get here because you're smart enough to be here. Or when you're in the system, especially in elementary, if you're a Black boy and you're not, and for me, I have a son. I remember when Everett was little. Everett's grown now. Everett's a fidgety guy. He's always moving around and touching things, whatever it is. And so imagining him in the classroom, some teacher's going to sit him out, and how much education is he going to miss? And I believe everything that we see, I'd say even globally, is about economics. It's never simply, we don't like Black people, or we want to hold the power as long as we can. We don't want anybody else to have it, because economically, wealth, that is the key to success in what we understand in capitalist societies. Whereas communist societies, they make sure that people don't have anything and they fall in line. Well, they can't do that here in America, so they're struggling with that.
Right.
I want to ask you a question. So I am. I think I told you this story one time before, but we have parties in our house 4 or 5 times a year to feed kids at Duke and Central and Carolina, wherever they are. And we bring judges and very important people in, and it's a very diverse, most people call my parties the United Nations of parties. But
that's great.
But we bring people in, and in the room where most people put their coats and things, there's a picture of Malcolm X. And he's standing there doing this, and he's got his Muslim ring on his finger. And I've had white people ask me if that was my father. Like, of course it is.
Wow.
I said, yeah, that's my father. Yes, absolutely. Why else would I have this picture up here? And I don't look anything like him. He doesn't look anything like me. But that assumption that he is somehow related me because I'm Black and he's Black, I guess I don't even know what that is. But
that's exactly right.
I talked to a young fella about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he's Muslim. And I will tell you, I learned so much about the Muslim people, their practices and their behaviors. I was just shocked what I didn't know. And then you sent me the Minister Farrakhan's talk on Malcolm. I don't know, and it's not for me to judge or say who's right or who's wrong, but all I know is that Malcolm was such a strong proponent for Black people.
Yeah.
And I don't take that to say anything away from Martin Luther King. He did what he did. But I think
Right.
we needed the Malcolm more than we needed the Martin. Although the
Mm.
Malcolm eventually brought Civil Rights Act and voting and all that stuff, it wasn't a strong enough message to white people for them to fear it. That's why I believe he was assassinated, because his voice was
Right.
so strong and so powerful that he couldn't. They had to silence him. So
Right.
in the way the world is now, how do you see, like you were talking a little earlier about like the Jesus that you saw? Like I grew up Catholic.
Mm.
Eventually I became Baptist. I in Holy Ghost. We speak in tongues. I had no idea what I was doing, but hey, there you go.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to no church. So
Mm.
and I heard a talk by what's the man's name who founded Motown? I can't think of his name right now.
Oh, Barry Gordy.
Very
Barry
good.
Gordy.
He said, God is in your heart. You don't need to go to no building to find God. God is in your
Mm.
heart. And when I heard that, that really gave me peace, because I talk to God all the time. I thank you for everything. You see my hair, barely combed.
Yes.
I thank God that I got hair,
That's right. That's right.
or,
That's
right.
right.
Or, if I go downstairs, I can't eat a single thing. I'm glad I got food. And I believe that
Right.
because I have a spiritual relationship, a conversation with God all day about all kinds of stuff. Maybe ask me, how did you let Mr. Floyd die? All these things. You don't answer them
Mm-hmm.
questions. But I believe in the spirit of God and the universe. And what are your thoughts about that, Mike?
I'm sorry. What was it? You froze. What are my thoughts on?
What are your thoughts about religion and spirituality, God, Muslims, and all those kinds
Oh
of
yes.
yes. Can you
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a wonderful, wonderful question. First, I don't see any division in religion or spirituality. I believe in my heart, I'm a Muslim. Muslim means one who submit his or her will to do the will of God.
yeah.
I believe in my heart, I'm a Christian. I was brought up as a Baptist, so my first experience was in a Baptist church,
Mhm.
and that was my beginning. Um, so I believe I'm a Christian. A Christian means one who's crystallized into God through the oneness of Jesus Christ. I believe that I'm a Jew. I want to be obedient to God. I want to practice what Moses brought to the Jews. I want to be a Jehovah's Witness. I want to be able to see God. But I not only want to see God, even though when I look at you, when I look at other Black people, I'm looking at God.
Amen.
Because if I believe I'm a God, I believe you're God. That's why in Islam, when we meet and greet each other, we give the greetings of Assalamu alaikum, or peace be unto you. If you look in your Bible, you will see that whenever Jesus began to speak, he always said, peace be
Yeah.
unto you.
Yep.
And he was not speaking English back in those days. He was speaking Hebrew, Aramaic, or Arabic.
Right.
And you'll see the other prophets in the Bible, they say grace and peace or mercy be unto you. Again, saying Assalamu alaikum.
Right.
When you look at Mary, the mother of Jesus, on when Christmas time comes around and they put all these, figures in their yard, you see Mary's head is covered.
Right.
She's not walking around here looking like Megan Thee Stallion. Her booty is not out. Her breasts are not hanging out. She's a covered woman because she has chastity about herself. She is a respectable woman. But someone taught us and our women to take off our clothes. So when we were brought here, before they brought us here to America, we were Muslims. Islam was our religion, but when they brought us to America, they broke us and made us so-called Christians.
Right.
And I always said, well, how can we be Christians and they're the Christian Knights of the Ku Klux Klan?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be Christians too, but they are killing us.
Right.
They hate us, but
Right.
we're looking in the same book. How does that happen? But there is truth and falsehood in the Bible. It just has to be dissected and studied, not just read, but it needs to be studied. There are people who can quote the scriptures, but they have no idea what they're quoting.
Yeah.
But you have to dig deep into those words and pierce those words apart to have complete understanding. But when people tell me I'm not into religion, I'm spiritual, well, in order to be spiritual, spirit comes from materials. You can't have a spirit without a material thing. You see a cat, a dog, you, me, us, we all have spirits. If somebody aggravates you, You walk in the house and you're aggravated, your spirit is an aggravated spirit. And people can feel it whether you open your mouth or not. I know my wife, she asked me, bring the towels out of the bathroom when you're done and put them in. Now, if I forget that, she's going to be her spirit's going to be a little annoyed. And I can pick that up without her telling me. I know that.
Not my sister. Not my sister. That ain't how my sister works. No, she is not. Not my sister.
Just a little. So religion, it's funny to me because I always tell them, like, everyone has religion. Yeah. It is what you do religiously. Whatever you do over and over and over again, that is your religion. Whatever you wake up with on your mind and whatever you lay down with on your mind, that's probably your religion. If you wake up thinking about how can I make some money? I need some money. Money, 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 money. Money is probably your religion. And I know it is for white people. That's why they put on the money. In God we trust.
Yeah.
Because that's their religion. That's what they bow down to. That's what they worship. So I look at it, God he is not divisive.
Yeah.
He's the author of peace. Satan is the author of division. So when I see my Christian brother, I recognize them as my brother or my sister. I see my Muslim brother, my Muslim sister, my Jew brother, my Jewish sister. But I'm talking about real Christians, real Muslims, real Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm talking about those people who we're all striving, not perfect, but we are striving to be that. Like you say, you have a conversation with God. There are preachers who would tell you, oh, you're not supposed to ask God anything. That's not true. How would you know? As a school teacher, if I'm not allowed for my students to ask me a question, how can I teach them?
Right.
But in the Bible, he says, ask, seek, and knock.
Yep.
And so the first letters of each one of those words.
And you receive it not because you ask not.
Exactly. So you look at the first words of ask, seek, and knock, they still come back to the word ask.
Yeah.
Ask, seek, and knock. So we're supposed to ask because that's how we're supposed to learn. So the preacher, when they tell me, well, you can't question God. Well, I'm not questioning God. I'm questioning you.
Yeah.
And so if you can't help me get to where I need to go, maybe I need to find another teacher.
Yeah.
And, that was for me how I found Islam, where I did my study and said, well, who is this man Farrakhan? Well, then it took me to his teacher, Elijah Muhammad. Then it took me to, who did he teach? Well, he taught our brother Malcolm. He taught Joe Tex. He taught Muhammad Ali and many hundreds of thousands of believers and the people that he's affected. And I'm like, I can't find anything that I disagree with in what he has taught. There are things that make me uncomfortable, but that's me. It makes me uncomfortable because I wasn't living up to the level I was supposed to be. So if I go out here and have a child out of wedlock and they're teaching to be married first, then who am I to blame? Do I run away from that because I'm wrong? The Bible says it too. The Quran says it. So either I'm going to get my life in order or I'm going to continue to do the will of Satan.
Right.
And I said, let me try to get myself together. Not that I'm perfect, but let me strive to be better and better. And if I don't get it right on Thursday, maybe God will bless me to wake up on Friday to get back in the fight again and have a holy war with myself and being a better person than I was the day before.
Yeah. I'll tell you something a white person told me not too long ago. Just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second. My phone is ringing. I really need to answer this.
No problem.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I grew up in South Carolina, a little small rural town called Walterboro, about some miles from Charleston, not very far from Charleston. And my school, well, I started off going to Catholic school. When I finished elementary school, I guess grades 1 through 6, I then went to just a regular school that was the beginnings of integration for the school system or desegregation, whatever word you want to call it. But I remember we were in class and a young white boy, handsome little fella, probably had more money than I would probably ever have in my whole lifetime. He said to me, do you understand why you ends experience the life you have? And growing up, I did not take it for offense at him calling me an N because I've been called that so many times. I thought I was a part of regular vernacular, right?
That's right.
So I said, no, please enlighten me. Of course, I used that word because I probably didn't know that word at that time.
Right,
Uh,
right, right.
but he said, if you read the Bible and go read about ham,
Mm.
I mean ham that you eat, or is ham a person? What kind of ham we talking
Right,
about here? Right.
right.
He said, no, it's a person. He said, God cursed black people because of the actions of ham. And he was so dead sure about that that he, came to school the next day with the Bible. He stood up in front of the class and read it and said, this is why we are allowed to mistreat black people because of the actions of
Mm.
ham. And I've read that text so many times, it's irritating even to look at it. But
Mm.
white people can justify mistreating us by finding something that may or may not be true in the Bible and attaching it
Right,
to us. And
right.
one other thing I'll tell you, and I'll stop talking again. When I didn't get my first college degree until I was 42, 43, 45, somewhere around there. I don't know how old I was, but old as hell. Um, and
Nothing,
uh,
nothing.
and we read a story called Gilgamesh.
Mm.
What? And every single word of Gilgamesh matches Noah's Ark from
Mm.
2 by 2. Every single part of Gilgamesh is Noah, but it's 5,000 years older. So this is something that happened a long time. Whereas Noah, however old he is, but the exact same stain, the
Mm.
2 by 2, water for 40 days and 40 nights, everything that it was in a writing, it was over 5,000 years older than the story of Noah. So
Mm.
when I read the Bible, I do not read with skepticism. I accept that somebody said, this is what God said. It's not for me to judge or question, but I think about it a lot and I pray about it a lot. I
Mm.
talk to God all the time. I mean, when I wake up in the morning, when I go to bed at night, I talk to God and I just say, help me increase my wisdom. Help me be
That's
a
right.
better person than I am right now. And,
Mm.
and that I'm able to survive and grow and achieve. I mean, like, I have a very good job. I make, I guess, a good bit of money, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
struggle because in a household with 4 people and you're the primary bread provider.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't get a whole loaf of bread. Sometimes you might get a half a loaf of bread. So I've always
Right, right.
asked God, just meet on my steps, show me the way, show me what I need to know and what to do. And like you said, like I have every Bible by every religion ever written. I've gotten all of them and I've read every single one of
Mm. Yeah. Well, I always, when I was like you growing up in South Carolina, white boys said the most unimaginable things to me. And I'm like you, I didn't know what they meant. So they didn't offend me because I was too ignorant to be offended because I
them.
didn't know what the definition of the word was. But I kept going back to play with those little boys. And I found when they would call me a coon, a shine, a nigger, whatever, they would still allow me to play with them. But as we played together, playing football, I was a better athlete than all of them. So I went from coon, shine, boy, nigga to Mike.
Mhm.
And I learned later, years later, 20 some years later, from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, he said, racism cannot exist where Black excellence is present. And
That's
so people tend to forget that you see Tiger Woods on the walls of white people's homes in the suburbs, Michael Jordan posters, the Williams sisters as tennis players, Muhammad Ali,
right.
because they're excellent. And so if we're excellent at what we do, they will have a tendency to so-called give us a pass. They use the language like, you're different. No, 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 I'm not different. I understand what I'm dealing with this natural enemy. But going back to your comment about the Bible, when they talk about the curse of Ham, I always say to them, well, who wrote the Bible? Let's start there.
Right.
And there's several different versions, which tells you that people are able to go in and out of that book all the time and put in and take out what it is that they want to put in or take out. There's the King James version. Well, who was King James and why does he get a version?
Right.
There's a standard version. There's a new standard version. There's the international version, a new international version. There's the women's Bible where now God is a woman. And regardless, it just makes me wonder who is changing the word of God.
Right.
Whereas the Quran is a lot different, where the Arabs, thankfully, they kept the word of God whole. They did not go in and start pulling out falsehoods. So the Quran came and was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, 1400 years ago, because the Bible had been so corrupted.
Right.
So the curse of Ham, we don't accept that. We don't believe it. But I will tell them, when you look at Adam and Eve, who are they?
Exactly.
There were people who were here before Adam and Eve. The Bible says in Genesis, God said, in the beginning, he made this, he created this, he created this. But when he got to man, he said, the Bible says, and let us make man. Well, God has created all of these wonderful things: the sun, the moon, the water, the stars, the birds, the animals, creepy crawly things. But when you get to a man, which you and I are able to do and have done, you need help, God? Let us make man. So who is the us?
Yeah.
The us are the aboriginal people, those black people who was here before Adam and Eve. So for us, I will tell white people, Adam and Eve were the first white people on the planet, and they were the first to disobey God. Because when the devil went up to Eve and said, eat of this apple, she said, come on, Adam, let's do it, bro. Come on. So they fell first, and then civilization followed them after that. But those were not just the first people, those were the first white people on the planet. That's why the scripture says, let us make man, because a wise black scientist took a gene and a germ from us as black people and went from black to brown to yellow to white. So that's why you have black people, you have Latinos, you have Asians, and then he went all the way down until he got white people, which were the weakest of all of the people. But there is scientific facts about that, and a lot of white people know that that is the truth. But of course, they would never teach you that in school. But that's what needs to be taught in school.
Let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you, we have about 2 minutes. I want to give you time to end, but I want to tell you this one thing. One of the things I tell people, what would life be if you got a box of crayons and every crayon in that box is white? How
Come
much
on.
could you
Mm.
create from that?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love that. Love that.
Yep. So
Love it.
all those, I think I get a 48 box of crayons once a year. I love all those. How many different colors of purple, blue, green, orange,
Right.
whatever it is. To me, that's God's work. You know,
That's right.
the
That's
white
right.
crayon is there, and it should be there, but it's not the only
Absolutely.
damn crayon in the box.
It serves its purpose. Absolutely. No
Yep.
doubt about it. I love that. It's like, it reminds me of bouquets of flowers. Maybe I don't want just the red rose or the white rose, but when you put all of this bouquet of flowers together, it's absolutely beautiful. But if
Yep.
I just had one, it's like your crayon example. That's wonderful. I have to hold on to that one. That's great.
Send money.
For sure, for sure.
But the last 2 minutes are yours. Please share anything else you want to share with us, and I hope you'll do this with me again, or we could talk a little bit further, probably in July or August. But I hope you'll do another one of these with me.
Yeah, Rochelle, I'm very, very pleased with this. I saw your notes and what was expected and what you were looking for, but this is a beautiful platform, and I hope you uh, use these words I'm about to say as motivation to continue on, and inspiration, because with television being what it is today, radio being what it is today, we need platforms like this to help educate, help teach the younger generation that's coming up, and for you to be able to leave this behind for your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, so they'll be able to see and hear, the vernacular, the language, the courage in this time, because this is going to be a time when they talk about, man, did you hear about what happened in the 60s, what happened in 2020 with all this 2016? And then they'll be able to pull up, the ancestors and be able to say, look at how she looked, look at how she spoke. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. So I thank God for you and this platform.
Me too.
And I just hope you continue to, deliver this and leave your legacy with this, because this
Well,
is fantastic.
absolutely. Somebody asked me how many of these I'm going to do. I'm going to do it until we have change or until I die.
That's right.
Whichever one of those
There
come.
you go.
Because
Yeah,
I mean,
this is.
you know, when you look at TV and you see all these famous people, black, brown, blue, green, yellow, and orange on TV talking, they make it seem like they're talking for all of us. But the people that are down here in the trenches, no, you're not talking for me. You're not, because
No.
my experiences, like I'm not rich. You know, I don't have tons of money and fame and fortune attached to my name. I'm a humble Black woman that is a technologist, been a technologist for a long time. And my goal is for anybody who wants to get on this chat with me and talk about anything you want to talk about. We could talk about crayons if you want to.
Right.
You want to get it? Let's do it, because I think it's important for people to hear different versions of what they feel and stories people have to tell, as opposed to, well, I'm going to get on here every day and I'll prognosticate, you know, what I don't know anything. I'm, you know, although I might be well educated these days, I still am learning, and I'm learning every day. So these help me. I learn something from almost everyone I've done. And if you get a chance, listen to the one by Asante. I can't remember what his last name is, but listen to it when you get a chance. It's near the very front of it. I think he might have been my 10th one, but listen to it. I think you'll find it very, very informative.
Okay.
Thank you so much, darling, for your
time.
Thank
you. I appreciate it. Give the family our love, and we'll be talking to you soon. And but you are rich. I'll tell you that, because I've seen your family. I've seen you, heard your family. Y'all are all rich in the spirit of God. I know rich people, people who really have, they are rich financially, and they are the most unhappy people I've ever met in my life. And they're just, the spirit is just droopy and just drawn in, and they're just constantly chasing that money. But I know rich when I see rich, and I see rich and wealthy when I look at your family.
Well, thank you so much. I have a beautiful family, you know, a wonderful husband.
Yes, you do.
Your cousin.
Yes, you do.
And my children. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful family. And I'm very grateful to God for them and for what he has provided for me. And, you know, Skip and I had this conversation one day about money, you know, like, so whenever it got sick, Michelle was away, you know, we had very good savings. And then we eventually depleted all of our savings. And he was always on the war path about it, you know, where I said, I don't worry. I said, what God said about the lilies in the field. Look at how they toil day and night. They don't worry about whether it's going to rain. They don't worry about where God is. They just, they have faith that God is going to provide. And that's all you can, God is going to provide.
That's all you can do.
Yeah.
I look at those birds outside. I'm like, they ain't going in, they're not in a worm line trying to get worms. They're out there doing their work and doing their thing. So God provides for them. And, you know, we are the glory of God. We are his glory. Yeah. So I know he'll provide for us.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you, cousin. Appreciate
Make sure you kiss my sister for me. And
I'll be happy to do that right now.
Yes, and she needs a new Louis Vuitton pocketbook and some and some of them red bottom shoes. I forgot what they're called, but she need that, you know, as just you know, let her know you're thinking about it.
All right, will do. Love you, Rochelle.
Love you too, darling. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.